I think we lose Doug. Did we lose Doug? I think Doug fell off the deep. Oh, there he is, coming back. There you go, Doug. I appreciate good for you. Come back, man. Get the
I got kicked off.
there. What's that?
I got kicked off. I guess my gerbil took a break.
Right. Well, good to have everybody back here on the After Action Workshop. Again, this is an agency level open to anybody workshop that we talk about just anything that you guys want to talk about. Today we're talking about, well, first of all, I'm sorry, let me go around the horn real quick. Chris, man, how you doing, my brother? You got the locks flowing today. You're rocking the Bills hat. I see the Bills hat right there. They won. So are you doing okay there, brother?
Yeah. So I guess there's a huge nationwide Verizon outage. So I was just on the phone with a couple folks and the phone went out. So I was like, oh shit, am I going to be able to get on with this? So worked out good. And yes, we'll be playing the Broncos. So Saturday, I think?
Yes, I think
we were playing the Pats, but apparently Broncos had a bye. So anyway, that's all.
Right. And Dougie Fresh, man, what's going on with you?
Not a whole bunch, man. Not a whole bunch.
We got some things coming up. We're busy. After Actions. Again, we're pushing around the country to make sure that we help our first responders. And again, we have the workshop here that is helping to do that, giving a platform for guys to just have that conversation, confidential, no judgment. We're here for that. So today we're going to get right into it because one of those things that we realize in our field and what we do in our travels around the country with the different agencies. We're going to talk about the help gap that agencies don't see, right? So we're talking about, because agencies around the country, right? We're seeing where they are providing the EAP and the different resources, right? And trying to I don't want to say check the boxes, but they're trying to do those things that they think are necessary to make sure that it's available to their members, right? But the problem that I think we're talking about this a little bit, the problem that we see or the concern that we see is that while it's there, it's not being used, or they're falling in that gap between maybe making that first call and then not actually getting any resources or any services from those said resources. Does that make sense? You guys have any example of that? You know what I'm talking about?
So I actually, and we've decided on this topic before yesterday. So we've been on this and Marcus helped us, stuff like that. But something interesting came over LinkedIn the other day from Florida's from the FDLE. So they just, and I'll just to quote it so I don't misquote it, has achieved a major milestone in officer wellness and data innovation. New state level methodology provides clear understanding of issues, officers model that can be replicated nationwide on specifically on officer suicide. And they did a great study. And the study's actually published in there. I forwarded it to a couple people because it's awesome. Interestingly enough, because anytime I see a study that goes out, I look to where they're getting their information from. And this is relatively new, right? And so this is identified. So FDLE identified what everybody's kind of been, there's a gap in services on identifying people in crisis, on what to do when you have somebody in crisis and what happens after, all that good stuff, right? So I look at the citation page, which is, and this is a very, very well done research, right? And anything having to do with police or law enforcement suicide, you're always going, if I don't see this name, Violante, who is a professor out in Buffalo, is the leading expert on police suicides and has done a ton of research spanning decades, right? So he was quoted a bunch of times. A project that I worked on through NASI, the National Organization of Safety Initiatives, specifically the Consortium for the Prevention of Law Enforcement Suicide, was also quoted because we had come out with toolkit and just a bunch what the facts that we found with whether it be data collection, whether it be prevention, intervention, and postvention, like those three stages. So that was kind of, so they took information that's relevant and is also very new. So it's not just old information. They're putting a bunch of stuff in. But when we talk about the gaps, like what you were talking about, like just relying on the EAP. All this stuff is going on. I wonder how many people in Florida know about this on the departments. You know what I mean?
Not a lot. We can talk to Florida, but I think it's safe to say probably nationwide, right? Not a lot of people know about these studies, these resources out there. And I know a little bit about the study you're talking about because Commissioner Matt Walsh talked about that last year, actually at the last year sometime. So and because I think before last year that they were saying that we had, was it like 4 or 5 suicides throughout the whole state, and he was like, after the study it was like more in the 40s and 50s, right?
Oh yeah.
So absolutely, but 44. So Doug, I'm bringing it to you, man. Like, in your experience, have you witnessed that gap where there's resources here for the agency, but the guys ain't getting to it, they're not going to it, they're not what's have you witnessed that?
Yeah, and I'll give it from 2 different angles because with Commissioner Walsh, as you were going to say, he actually talked about it at our gala, if you guys remember.
Okay. That's where it was.
And fortunately for me, I've been involved, as you know, Raul, I've been involved in a lot of these conversations with Matt, and Survive First is partnered in partnership with FDLE. So we've been in there. And here's one of the things that we found, and it doesn't put the blame on anybody. In Florida, you have really big agencies. Orlando PD, Miami PD, Jacksonville, Tampa, stuff like that. And then you have little agencies from 13-man to like my agency, which was 65-man PDs. In my agency, we didn't have the knowledge. So God bless my chief. When I had my incident, he picked the phone up and he called a bigger agency and said, hey, what do you guys do for your guys? And he got that knowledge. But one of the things we found out was, like, for example, a big agency, and we'll go out of Florida, for example, Houston, LA, NYPD, they have the resources, and the command staff bring the resources into their PD. But the PD is so big that it gets lost in translation from a supervisor. So say like a midline supervisor, like a sergeant who's way the hell over here in the department, shagging calls all day, babysitting his guys and doing that. And they have an incident and they have 200 lieutenants, 200 majors, 200 captains. I mean, the numbers could be ridiculous, but you get the point. By the time it goes through all those factors, these guys down here don't know about it, and they don't know enough the protocol. And we had this happen. An agency had resources, guy had an alcohol problem. And the one commander said, this is not a problem of the agency. He has EAP rights. Tell him to call EAP. This is not an agency problem. So they kind of failed. And most guys, to include myself, have bad experiences or bad experiences with EAP. So they failed to use those resources. So you have it at that level. And then you have this level, what we learned. You have a conference, for example, COPS or the FOP wellness, some sort of wellness conference that puts on trainings, concerns police survivors, great organizations like that. They do a great job of providing those trainings. They send, we've all done this in our careers. We get sent to a training to bring that training back. So by the time that person comes back to the wellness team and gets the availability to implement that training and education in their industry, they get kicked the fuck out of the unit and they're shagging calls on midnights. So nobody, right, gets the training or the knowledge through in the department. And at the time, the chief and the admin think, oh, we got it covered. We sent one of our people there. They're going to put it into play. So we've seen these type of gaps. And then, unfortunately, there's the gaps where, you know, for example, maybe a sheriff who's more in a political role doesn't pay attention so much to, I'm giving an example, to his agency. They don't have time for it. So they don't want to hear it. And then there's that extreme to it. So there's been a multitude. And then the other thing we learned, the last thing was there was an organization, not bashing them, but they were putting numbers out. And since wellness of this magnitude is fairly new in law enforcement, I'd say fairly new. It ain't been around as much as, alcoholism and domestic things like that, but it's the newer thing. And so they put these numbers out, and people just counted it as God's word. Oh, there was only 4 suicides in Florida. So I was there that day with Matt, and we were having this conversation. Yeah, we had 4, and Matt and I were like, "Shit, man! I know of 4 in my area." And Matt being the commissioner of DLE is like, "I know way more than that." So that's what sparked that. And it come to find out, can't point the finger at anybody. A lot of agencies don't announce it. We had a suicide in Florida this week, and it has not been announced yet, out of respect to families or whatever the reason is. And so that number, that 4 was really 44. That's a really big gap. And so that's why they and us and the team have developed this. So they investigated. Here's the other thing: a lot of people just count working working cops or active duty police officers. They're not factoring in the other law enforcement agencies that are out there. They're not factoring in the cop who retired last Wednesday and drove his car into a tree at 160 miles an hour, single vehicle accident in the middle, those type of things. So that's where really FDLE went into.
Yeah, let me back us up a little bit in reference to the cops seeking the help, right? And Scal, I'm gonna bring this to you, man. And just to kind of bring back to where we're at here with the gap. Once an officer, is told to go call EAP, is there a gap there? Like what's that been looking like in your experience when they go to? And I can tell you real quick from my quick story. I've heard the stories of guys calling EAP, and then the EAP says, yeah, here goes 10 numbers. Try one of these and see what they, see what works for you.
I can get you in 3 weeks.
Yeah, and then you call one of those numbers, and that clinician is no longer working. So you're going down a Rolodex, and I say that all the old people know what a Rolodex is, but you go down the Rolodex to hope that somebody picks the phone up. Any stories like that? Any examples like that?
1,000. So yeah. There's a couple things that. So let's look at it initially. Somebody's finally reaching out, and by the way, I don't want to miss or underrepresent what that means. There's a first responder or veteran that finally decides, that puts all their pride aside to say, I need help. They're struggling, and they get to that.
Chris, stay with that. I'm just going to say, add all that into there, because I want to know also, like, what typically prevents a first responder from, reaching out. So go into all that if you just open it up. Yeah.
So like one of the number one reasons that I hear is asking for help is going to jeopardize my career trajectory. So getting into a specialized unit, staying where they're at, or making them look weak in the upper echelon, or the people that make decisions for him or her to go different places. Also, on a smaller level or on a closer level, how does everybody that they work with, that they rely on, and they want people to rely on them, how are they going to feel? So there's a lot of potential for, I want to avoid shame, or I want to avoid derailing my career before it even starts, right? So you have that aspect. There's a ton of reasons. Another major reason why I hear a lot of people not, or like one of the second or third reasons I hear people not getting help, is finances, what it costs to get help. So you take all that into consideration, and the person is reaching out, and there's 15,000 other little side anecdotes that go with it, but. So you take all that. Now you're having them call these different places. Now here's the crazy part. EAP, as as an idea or as a resource is phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is there isn't one EAP. Guys, we've gone to thousands of agencies. Everybody has a different EAP. Some have great ones. Some have crappy ones. Some don't even know their EAP exists. Some are in-house. Some are, outside of their agency. All these different things. So there is no standardization of what that looks like, right? They're doing all this stuff while in crisis. Mm-hmm. And I equate it to this. I was helping my father-in-law, who had lost his wallet. He's a Korean War vet, right? Loses his wallet, loses his military ID, which is the only thing that was like a major concern. When I called the VA, they were like, hey, listen, just have him get online. And he's a Korean war vet. He thinks phones are the future, right? Like, so by the way, the help is there for him. And I was fortunate enough that I knew who to call to expedite it and get the stuff in. Right. But imagine if you're in crisis and you're by yourself and you don't want to put your shit out there and you want to reach out. Now you're having to navigate this weird, do I have a good EAP? Do I have a bad one? Who am I talking to? That's another big fear. Like, I don't want to be talking to somebody that it's eventually going to come back to me or all this other good stuff. But what I like to point out to the folks that don't have great EAPs or they don't trust it. First, why don't you trust it? And here's to speak to the most important part. We're waiting until the crisis happens to figure out all the problems. Mm-hmm. How about, and this is one of the great things that I was working with Sherry over, National Director over at FOP, National FOP Wellness and Empowering Peers. We talk about resources in a couple different categories. Specifically, as a peer team, or what we do as a peer team, what are we doing that's proactive? What are we doing that's reactive? What's working, what's not working? So for our end, what's our EAP? I know chiefs and commissioners that don't know the number to the EAP. I know that there's places that don't know what the EAP covers. So let's educate that. There was a comment that was put out a while back on one of the posts I did in LinkedIn or blah, blah, blah. And they were talking about how wellness needs to be part of the culture. You know how that happens? You have to, and I brought this up years ago, wellness initiatives, resources should be part of the promotional process. What that does is it ensures that the people who are in charge of taking care of everybody have to have some semblance of understanding of what resources are available. Because I can't fault somebody who gets promoted to sergeant, lieutenant, captain, whatever, and they've never been. The only thing they're concerned about is a lot of political policies or social media policies, which are important. I don't want to diminish that, right? But there's no conversation about wellness. And not so much the conversation. People are talking about it all the time. What specifically? I ask every time I go teach somewhere or I speak somewhere, I say, hey, listen, if I came to you and I was struggling, I was like, hey, I thought about killing myself last night. Would you help me? They're all like, yes. What would you do? And
no idea.
I don't call. I would call this, or I'd ask you how you're doing. I'm like, great. Who are you calling? Who's taking my gun? What's the procedure? What's your agency's policy? What is the good, bad, or otherwise outcome? I go to get help and I don't really buy into it and I don't change my ways. What happens to me? Or I go in, I buy in, I do great. What happens to me when I come back to work? It's a huge landscape that's very fluid. And so
let me ask you really quick here, Chris. I hate to cut you there, but Doug, I'm gonna go into this with you, man. So if what do you think has been the issue for that guy that recognizes he's got something going on? Why? And Chris touched on it, but I know you have some other examples and some other experiences. That guy that knows something's wrong with him. He knows he's angry. He knows he's depressed. He knows he's anxious, and dealing with issues. What was that?
Fucking velociraptor.
A bird flew by the house, so they go bananas.
You never know what's going to happen on the after action workshop, baby. Stay tuned.
All we need is Pexter to come back and do a drive-by.
But what I was saying, Doug, is like, so that guy that recognizes he's got something going on, why doesn't he just himself pick up the phone? And Chris covered a couple of them, but in your experience, why aren't they picking up the phone more?
Yeah, there's so many just different factors to that, from stigma to concerns of losing jobs and things like this. And this is one thing. I'll give you one example, and I'll use myself because I did this, and this is something that haunts me to this day, and it haunts my very dear friend and police chief that I did this to. I drove from a cemetery where I was going to shoot myself. And I walked into an office and they said, "Hey, we're going to take you to a place to get you help." And I started to beg him. I said, "If you do, they're going to take my son from me." Just that little moment. I was begging Mike. You've heard the story, because he was going to kick the shit out of me. Remember, he tells the story how he was so aggravated with me because I wasn't making sense. So I'm getting to it. And I'm having this conversation with him, and I'm begging him not to do this. And he's looking at me going, "Shit, if I don't do this, if I do this, he might lose his son. But if I don't do this, I'm going to lose my friend and my coworker and my employee, the whole package."
Mm-hmm.
And so what concerns me about that is we hear this a lot. You're way over here. You're getting ready to take your life, but you're concerned of losing your job. And what I've learned through that, and this isn't my wheelhouse, but for my own self-education, it's like, when you are in that deep of a dark place, your brain is misfiring. It's not thinking on all cylinders. It's not doing the right things. You're definitely in a state of confusion. And so, there's that factor. I think that's a big factor that happens, is most of the time we just, in that critical situation, you don't know. Because I did call EAP earlier in my career. I did ask for help. I did call EAP, and I had a bad experience with EAP. I'm just one of those guys that had a bad experience. It's not saying that they're the worst or they don't work. I'm an agency that when we called EAP, we got 3 phone calls. That was it. Not 3 phone calls. What are the things? 3 visits,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The agency next to me got 36, but we got 3. And so, it just led into a bad experience. So it didn't work. So it was lack of knowledge. Am I making sense?
Yeah.
Those are things that stick out to me.
So so let me just throw something in there real quick, because this is kind of important. And we complain about this all the time. We hear a lot of podcasts, we hear a lot of conferences, we hear a lot of speakers. They'll go on about how this is what's wrong, this is what's wrong. Well, what do you do? Well, our team, myself, Raul, Doug, and Mark, was a big part of it. We put together a pathway flow chart. So we're telling you all the things that's wrong, but we're also going to say, hey, this is how you fix it. Now, what we tried to do was, from our experience, we were like, all right, what are the big issues we're seeing? The big issues are, I don't know how to get help. I don't know who to call. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to work into my agency. So we were dealing with a couple different agencies. So we created this. We're like, here's a problem. Here's a gap in services and resources. This is what we do. There's 2 paths that you can kind of go down that most agencies have. All agencies should have this, right? And
we're gonna hold that, because we're gonna come back to that in the end, man. The boss is telling we got to go in order, so I'm coming right back to you with that, man.
Damn, is she covert in the background? I don't see it.
Hey, man, the boss gave me orders, my brother. I am scared of her. She intimidates me. So I'm doing what I'm told, man. So,
I'm actually sick of being bossed around by women, man.
All right, let me ask you this. Let me ask you this then, real quick, Chris. From an agency's perspective, what actually happens after the first call, after the first referral is made? What actually happens? Well, what do they think happens, and then what actually happens?
Well, it depends on what they're getting. See, that's the thing of it. So is it a near incident? In other words, nothing physically happened, but it was significant
Right.
to that.
I would say it's significant. Yeah, it's a significant something. Yeah, let's go with that.
So again, and we just have to go back to basics. A lot of it is understanding what I can't help you if I don't know what you need. That's ultimately what comes down to it. And the problem is we're dealing with folks that they themselves don't know what they need or why what's going on is going on, right? So finding out, talking. So when we get the initial call or somebody like, I need help, I don't know what to do. Were you physically hurt? Is this a administrative kind of jam that you're in? Is it a legal jam that you're in? Is it not a jam at all as far as you're getting in trouble or anything like that, but you're reaching out before something does go sideways? Or has it gone sideways? Or are you in the middle of it going sideways? Right. All those things. But when somebody makes that call, the number one thing they're thinking is, who's going to be notified of my situation? Hands down, is it the chief? Is it my sergeant? Is it my lieutenant? So it's kind of important to understand there is not one, like, if this happens and then this is what happens. There's so many different variants in it that it's important to really grasp what's going on. And by the way, and we all know this, a lot of the folks that reach out to us following a major critical incident or a critical incident, that critical incident has nothing to do with why they're reaching out. That is the last incident in a long line of horrific shit that's gone on. That is now
that broke the camel's back. Yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
So we just got to dig. We got to find out. We have to open those lines.
So bottom line is, and I heard you say it. I'm just gonna. There's got to be a quick conversation of what's going on.
Yeah.
Like what's going on. And that's got to be and it's got to be in such a way that I'm not. Why are you calling here? What's going on? It's got to be what's going on. I mean, why
you welcoming? It's got
something going on. Something's got you to this point where you pick the phone up and you're calling me, because you're not calling me to tell me about unicorns. And
I will tell you right now, think of it this way: when somebody is at their most vulnerable, reaching out for help, how you respond to them is going to dictate the next 9 to 10 steps, or how that individual. We have a small window of opportunity to help somebody. We fuck that up. We fuck that up, and then we lose that individual forever. Like, that individual will never reach out. So it's one of these things that if somebody's calling me, I don't want to be like, well, is that what you calling me for?
Right.
If it's important to them, it's important. That right.
Right. I like the way you put that. You calling me for that? Really? You
because in we hear a lot of shit, and the people are like, this happened, and I'm like, and in my head I'm going, are you shitting me? That's what's bothering you. But that's just the way I am. So I have to be like, all right, this is significant to them.
Right.
So it's not about me at all.
And Doug, and this, so that first conversation, and this is what should happen. I think Chris already said it, but you got to be welcoming. It can't be any pressure. It can't be any. Okay, you will do this, and you will do this, and it's got to be no pressure, no big time commitment. It's about working through
authority.
Yeah,
authority tempered with compassion. They're coming to you because they can't make the decision. They don't know what to do. So I'm going to tell you, hey, these are some options. This is what we can do to help you. That I'm here to help you navigate that.
That's it.
I don't need that. Well, I'm telling you from my opinion what I think would be the best course of action. It is up to that individual, him or her, to decide whether they want to do it. And here's just so we're all on the same page. We cannot be more invested in that individual's health than they are.
They are themselves. Yep.
And that's speaking to the guys and girls that do this stuff, because you can get burnt out very quickly if you're pouring your heart and soul into somebody that's not there yet. And so all I want people to do in like the peer capacity is, if they say no, or I don't want this, or I don't want, well, when you decide, or if you want my help, I'm always here for you. You're not hurting my feelings by telling me, no, I don't want to do that. I'm here for you. Because if somebody goes to get help against their will, how effective is that?
Right. Yeah, forcing them ain't going to make it happen. Doug, let me ask you this. I'm going to change the question a little bit on you, because I've seen you do it. How important is listening? Just
That's the
listening to
key.
somebody. And I've heard Chris talk about this. I've seen you do it, and I'm gonna just go ahead and jump a little bit on you, but I've seen somebody call Doug and talk to Doug, and they'll talk to him for 20 minutes, and I heard Doug say about a sentence and a half.
Mm-hmm.
And Doug's a talker, and then that person come back and say, "Man, Doug, you're good. I really feel so much better."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my thing is this, I always just try to be there. I learned that from Chris, actually, Ministry of Presence, and I remember the name because it was so important for me. Because in my darkest hour, I'm gonna try not to cry. In one of my darkest hours, I should say, I remember I was so lonely. I had plenty of people to talk to. I had an amazing coworkers, partners, department, friends in my circle, I had amazing family, but to me, I had nobody. And I remember, man, it's the one time I can remember I got on my hands and knees and I begged God for mercy. I'm like, I need somebody that will understand me and talk to me because when you go to work, right, and you go, guys, man, I'm struggling, man, I'm really struggling, man, let's go out and look at some titties, let's go grab some drinks. That's the common thing, excuse my language, but that's a common thing in the guy world, right, especially in our industry, in the SWAT and the tactics.
I would never.
In the dope world. No, you wouldn't. Not you. I wasn't talking about you. I was talking about all my guys. And so, obviously those weren't the answers. And so I begged God for mercy, man. And the next morning, man, my wife walked in the lobby of my police department. And I've never veered off from that path since because she has an ability to listen and she has ability to understand. And those things are really, really important, is just to sit there because if somebody's asking for help, which is the hardest thing for us to do, just being a man and being raised as a proper man. I'm not saying that lessens anybody. I'm just using an example. As a proper man, values and morals. We're just not used to asking for help. We're used to being the guy that people ask for help. And as a cop for 25 years, nobody calls you to tell you anything. They call you for help. And so to ask for that help is a hard thing. And when you ask for help, you don't want to be given ultimatums and tasks and directives and things like that. You're asking for help. You just want somebody to say, it's okay, I got you, right? That's really the general thing behind it. And I try to remember that and just be there and let them know that I just have my way. Here we go again. I don't have the way. I have a way. I have a way that worked for me in my journey, and let me share that with you. And I'm here. So
that guy that talked to Doug when Doug said one sentence, that was probably the first time he was able to get everything he wanted to out.
Right, and that's exactly it. That's exactly it. But man, it's that important to make sure that you're a listener. And you said it. I just kind of made it real simple there. So let me ask you this question here, Chris. What can agencies do better to kind of drive people to call an EAP? Early intervention. What can they do better to kind of bridge that gap? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So it takes a couple different things. It takes, first of all, it takes the head of that agency coming out and putting it at the forefront of importance. Like, it's not checking a box. And we all work for folks that check boxes, but it's what they do. So let's say somebody, and there's always a first, right? So let's say somebody does reach out and the agency from top to bottom helps that individual out. What a lot of times, one of the greatest things that could ever happen is that individual that is better or that in a better place becomes a champion or an advocate for what happened that was great. And what like, if me, Doug, and Raul are all working in the same platoon or working on the same team and stuff like that, and Raul comes back and is like, hey man, I was struggling, I did this, I had to take a break for a little bit, they got me help, I didn't get shit on, I wasn't looked down on, they helped me out, and guess what, I'm back. do you understand how you just made it okay for me if I'm struggling to be like, well, Raul did it, and Doug said he got help, and his world didn't collapse. He didn't get fired. He didn't do all that. So agency buy-in, and when I talk about agency buy-in, and I've said this everywhere, financially, you can't just be like, we're here for you. You need to financially support the initiatives. And you mentioned it earlier about we're only focused on taking care of the people that are sick, or when stuff happens, right? If you don't take care, or if you don't plan for what it looks like to help people before they're sick or to stay healthy, you're going to be spending all your time and money on helping the people that are sick. And it's just getting that mindset of, and I did, me and Dr. Amanda Farrell and a couple other folks, we put together a presentation, the cost of not helping.
Right.
The cost of not helping someone is significantly higher than helping somebody. Now, the problem that agencies see is that they're looking at controlling budgets, and I get that. I can appreciate that. But I'd rather spend $10,000, right, $20,000 or $100,000 than dealing with a multi-million-dollar lawsuit because I let somebody or a group of people kind of go by the wayside and I didn't really address it. And I heard a chief years ago say something like, somebody had a problem with drinking or blah blah blah, and they're immediately their go-to response was to hammer them. All right, they did something wrong administratively or whatever, but then the chief said something crazy. In my mind, I was like, holy shit. He goes, why am I going to immediately punish somebody when I haven't even determined whether or not I caused it? Like, did I create this situation? Right. And if I did, why am I blaming somebody for what they've done because I put them in a situation? Now, I'm not saying people get away with doing horrendous shit because I just didn't address it, but I'm talking about the manageable ones. Like, you have somebody that's struggling financially, with relationships, with the job, with Trump, all this good stuff. What do we have in place? By the way, I don't know of a police department that doesn't have any drama, right? So we can plan for this, right? We have SWAT teams. We have bomb squads. I know my agency had millions of dollars put into a bomb squad. We never handled a bomb, right? So, but we did it because when that bomb does show up, we want to be ready. Yeah. Why can't we do that for our guys and girls that are working? Why can't we be ready and prevent? Now, you're not going to prevent everybody from going sideways, but you'll minimize the amount of people that are going sideways. And it goes back, and I'll leave it at this. We've been so focused on pulling people out of the water that have fallen in. If we focus a little bit of effort on figuring out why they're falling in, we're going to prevent our efforts going into just pulling people out of the water kind of thing.
Absolutely.
That's a philosophy. Let me tell you his philosophy. It's one of my guys would say, he would always say, that's what smart man would do. We had these, and then our other teammate would say, well, smart man don't work here. That philosophy, right? It sounds pretty simple, but yeah, we and shame on us because that's reactive work, and we all know that reactive, even on the tactical side, is a lose-lose situation.
Right. Doug, really quick, man, what's the biggest misconception agencies have about the referral process, and what happens once somebody reaches out? What's the biggest misconception out there, you think, in your experience?
I would probably say the aftermath. I deal with that a lot. You and I just dealt with it recently. A guy wanted to go into treatment, but he was told he would be fired. That would be the aftermath. What it looks like for somebody to go there. And I always tell everybody, man, like the year after I came back, and I'm a guy who pulled a trigger with a gun to his head. The year after I came back to work, 1 year, I was officer of the year. And as you guys know, it's no easy task to be the top cop. I don't believe in that title, but I got it that particular year. And it was because I was happy and healthy, and I was motivated to work again. And I infected my coworkers and the people around me. So, it's that misconception of this guy is ruined or tarnished or will not be able to perform. That would be my answer.
Absolutely. And I just want to throw out there that, and this is the whole thing, is that we don't have to wait for the wheels to fall completely off. And we all know that that's a lot of times what happens, when we get that phone call, like Chris was saying, and you start kind of, hey, like, what's going on? Are you in the middle of the shit, or the shit kind of happened, and now you're getting hammered, or what's going on? And a lot of times the answers to those questions are, yeah, like this happened, and internal affairs, and DUI, and all this shit's kind of happened. We need to do a better job of trying to educate, make it a culture of reaching out a little bit sooner before the wheels have fallen off. So that's what we're trying to get at here. So with that, now, Chris, if you want to jump in and throw just the pathways and everything that we have, and what we've, kind of a streamlined thing, jump into that a little bit for me.
So there's a couple things. So we created, with all the shit that's going on and everything that we're seeing where services aren't being met, or people aren't reaching out, or they don't know what to do, and all this good stuff. We sat down and we created a pathway. In other words, there's two paths that you can take. One where the command is aware and you're notifying, or you're getting help through the command, or you want help from your command. That's one way. But when we're dealing with mental health or any kind of resource or for wellness, there's that, a lot of that could be confidential, right? And a lot of that is private. So we also have another pathway on how you navigate that by yourself, not notifying your command. And again, a lot of people get like, well, wait a minute, you can't notify your command. Your EAP, you can call your EAP without notifying anybody. That is a service that's a resource for you. That's a benefit that you have to reach out to your EAP. I had an officer go, yeah, I had the EAP, but I figured I had to tell my sergeant. I was like, no, you had, this officer was dealing with some postpartum issues, right? And their sergeant, lifelong bachelor, male, didn't really have an understanding of any kind of postpartum issues and child care and all this good stuff, right? So they're like, well, so I never reached out. I'm like, well, the EAP has stuff available for you. Call them. You don't have to call them. So there's those two paths. So the other thing that I would suggest, and I've said this to agencies all over the place, and by the way, when I talk about resources, I'm a big advocate for, if there's a free resource, take it, right? I worked on a project, the Vicarious Trauma Toolkit project. In that project, and it's free, it's online, check out Vicarious Toolkit. Online, there's what's called a VT org. It's the Vicarious Trauma Organizational Readiness Guide. It is a survey that you can give, again, for free. You just use Qualtrics or SurveyMonkey or whatever. Send it to your agency and find out what's going on. And so one of the big things we see is this. Folks at the head of the agency are aware of certain initiatives or resources where the boots on the ground may not have any idea of it. Vice versa, the people on the ground may have great resources that the upper echelon has no idea are kind of going around. The other thing is, a lot of people aren't going to be as familiar with services unless he or she's been involved or needed them. So they'll be like, when we ask you a question, does your agency have this, this, or this? They may not know. And that's not that the agency doesn't have it. It's just that they may not know about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So what we need to do is we need to bridge that gap. So you do the survey, you can take that out, get an idea what's bothering you or what's bothering your agency or what are some of the heavy things. Then you can start implementing some, like, again, you don't know what's broke. You can't fix what you don't know is broke. So go find out where you're missing your services or what are some of the obstacles and how can we address it. So we came up with the pathway of if this, then this. But more importantly, we also put out how to identify somebody in crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Behavior that's a departure from their normative behavior is a great indicator. And the reason I say that is because somebody's like, well, if you see somebody isolating, then that's a sign. Well, not necessarily.
Yeah, they can be an isolator. Yeah.
Normally keeps to themselves. If they're isolating, they're fine. They're status quo. But somebody who's really, really talkative or really like engaged, all of a sudden kind of is not, or somebody who is not very engaged and all of a sudden is becoming very engaged. Any kind of departure doesn't mean something's wrong, but there's something going on there that, hey, let me talk to the person, just like we did earlier, right? So what's going on with that aspect? Or
Hey, Raul, am I the only one frozen?
No, you're not frozen.
You're not frozen.
You guys were frozen for a while. Sorry.
We're good.
So,
We're good.
so having those, like, again, what's going on? How can I fix it? What do we need? Like, it's some basic stuff. Like, one of the big issues I had with an agency was there was a predominantly, and this was kind of odd, but it was a medical side of the house, like EMS or EMT, a lot of women in this agency, and they had nothing for breastfeeding or like for pumping milk. They were relegated to a bathroom, which is gross anyway, right? So what does that look like? There's a couple agencies that had some stuff where a lot of veterans were returning from combat. What do we have for them? So if you understand what's going on with your agency, you can better address it. And one of the greatest things, the greatest tools that any agency can use to find out what's going on, it's crazy. Ask. It's crazy how many people don't ask what's going on.
Right.
I said this to a couple of chiefs I was working with. I was like, you want to know what's going on? It's not happening between the hours of 8 and 4. Come to a shift or go hang out with somebody or talk to somebody at 2:30 or 3 or 4 in the morning that's on a shift that's been on there for a while. Because those issues are a little bit different than the ones during the day. And there's a little different dynamic. You'll get a little bit more realness because during day shift, there's a lot of brass around. There's a lot of people minding their P's and Q's. It's like when the real gets real, like at that night shift or the overlap shifts and stuff like that. Ask, what do you need? But so to like chiefs and commissioners and superintendents and all this stuff, I say, listen, the best bosses I've ever worked for have been the ones that always ask or always engage to find out how they can be a better boss. There's two types of supervisors. And I talked about this at nauseum years ago. There's the supervisor that does stuff so that they look good, does stuff for people so that they look good. And there's a supervisor that does stuff so that to address what his people need, his or her people need, right? There's two kind of driving forces. I will tell you, there's a lot of shitty supervisors out there. And I know I get some kickback from time to time, and I'll stay in my lane. But there's some fucking pieces of shit that are supervisors.
So we got a question here, Chris. I'm gonna,
awesome. Go ahead.
I'm gonna throw this out real quick, and then we'll probably close it out. But so a person says they've been an EAP for years, and often hear that people don't believe in the confidentiality of it. I'll kind of start this one off. Yeah, that's the reputation that precedes EAP pretty much everywhere I go. I will say this, in my experience, I think that a big part of that is that people get the mandatory referral confused or intertwined with that self-referral, right? So the mandatory referrals when, and I'm going to give you a real kind of broad example, is when Chris gets involved in a shooting and it's our policy that you're going to go to EAP. The doc's going to make sure everything's okay. You have a support system and you're not kind of doing, and yes, they're going to report back to me because I sent Chris there. This other example is when Chris is just feeling whatever he's feeling and he picks the phone up himself and starts talking to EAP. EAP will not report back to the agency for that, and so I always challenge people with that. Tell me the story of when EAP
violated
confidentiality in the instance where it was a self referral, somebody doing it on their own. And I still haven't heard that story. I'm not saying it doesn't exist somewhere, but definitely have not heard that as being a rampant problem amongst the EAP. But that does, it still is a reputation that precedes EAP.
So there's, and I get into this, and I've been following this forever. there is a distinct difference between confidentiality and privilege.
Yeah.
If I'm talking to a clinician, a licensed mental health provider, there is a privilege that I can't, and the difference between confidentiality and privilege is very simple. Confidentiality is a pinky swear. I promise I won't tell anybody about what we talked about. But if a court calls me up and says, hey, you got to testify to what Raul said, I can be compelled to talk about that. Privilege, I cannot be compelled to talk about what we talked about or the help that you received. So the other thing is, and I think this is where the question is kind of going, like you go get help, then you got to get like maybe a fit for duty to come back to work or some. So what information is translated back? So here's where a lot of people don't really understand. And it's important that we kind of look out for our own agencies on what that process is. I'll give you an example. Somebody goes to treatment. I send somebody to treatment, and then that individual effectively goes through treatment, goes through their program, comes back, whatever it was, mental health and or substance issues. They come back to work, right? I had a captain come up to me, go, before I give this person his gun back, I need to know what they went into treatment for. You'll run into a lot of people that want to know things that have no business knowing. No. So I told them, I said, hey, last I checked, you don't have a degree or license in counseling. I'm not telling you anything. All right. Well, how do I know if I don't give this, if I give this person his gun back, that they're not going to do something stupid? First of all, it's not on you. You're not making that decision. If a doctor makes that decision, they just get to go. So here's the bridge I'm trying to bring us to, right? That individual goes to treatment and then they come back to their agency. Normally that agency will do a fit for duty. What that means is that agency's contracted or in-house doctor will need to determine if whatever he or she went into to get help with has been addressed and it's not going to be an issue at work. And that the only reason we use that in-house or contracted doctor is so that that doctor understands the parameters of what your job is. In other words, if I work in tech support and I get injured on the job and I break my leg, I can still do tech support. But if I break my leg and I come back to work, I may be limited. I can't run. I need to sit down. So that's what the doctor's looking for. What that release of information to that doctor or that wellness coordinator is very vague. Chris has completed treatment for a medical issue because
fit for duty. Yeah, he's fit for duty. Yep.
Completed that, has met all the stuff. We do not see a problem with him or her returning back to work, right? Then the doctor will be like, all right, well, I have a couple questions. Where that comes into play is if that officer or that first responder is using illicit narcotics that are disqualifiers, right? Or engaged in some kind of behavior, because I've worked with folks that had some sexual addictions or some deviant sexuality kind of issues where because of what has gone on, the people, there's some mandated reporting that's going on. Ultimately, what I want you to understand is understand what confidentiality means. And if you hear somebody like Raul was talking about, I don't trust the EAP because they'll put my business out there. Okay. Why are you coming to that conclusion? Was it because Doug told you, hey, I don't trust the EAP because they did me wrong? All right. Well, what did they do wrong?
What did they do? Right.
What specifically? A lot of times it's hyperbolic, and people are like, I don't trust them just for the sake of not trusting them. I never trust them. Why? Well, because Chris said they're a piece of shit. Well, maybe Chris is right, but can Chris give you an example of why they're a piece of shit?
Yeah, that's always been my challenge, right?
So I say, so if that's the case, ask, reach out to. By the way, your EAP works for your agency. You don't work for them. So if they're missing the bar, they need to be called out on it. Hey, I have a question about this. You need to do this. What do you do? Put it out, put it on blast. What do you have to tell my agency? That's a great question to ask. What are you mandated to tell my agency that's paying you to take care of it? And once you get that information, that'll kind of squash what's confidential, what's privileged, what they're going to be disclosing, what they don't disclose. But if there's an issue, and by the way, if anybody ever gets any kind of HIPAA violation against them, please include me in on that lawsuit because that is a major, major lawsuit that if somebody violates HIPAA, right? So it's important to understand it. So I think the best thing we could do from top down and bottom up, learn, be a student of your craft, understand what you can do, how you can do it, what you can't do, what will be disclosed, what will not be disclosed. and it's different for every agency. It's kind of similar for most, but some agencies have their idiosyncrasies, or some agencies have their idiosyncrasies that.
Yeah, but foundationally, it's pretty basic. You know, the basics are still there, foundational. So yeah, absolutely, you're right on the mark there, man.
Right.
Hey guys, we're coming up. Go ahead, Doug.
Let me ask you guys a quick question, because as I'm listening to all this, and I know it sounds stupid, but wouldn't it be an SOP? Wouldn't that be an easy answer to implement an SOP in your, and if for y'all don't understand, cop talk is standard of operations or whatever they call
operating procedures, yeah.
Right. Procedures thing. Because I know my agency, we had a freaking procedure on how to take a crap. We literally had a policy on what you would have to do if you needed to use the bathroom and or it was an emergency bathroom. We had 2 different codes you had to call out, right? That type of stuff. Right. We got a procedure for how to put gas in your car, right? If you got to use a credit card, or you got to go here or there if you're on the road, that type of stuff. But do you have a policy in place for that? Because you might not ever run out of gas in your career. You might not ever have a bomb call in your career, but I will promise you this, you will definitely have a traumatic experience in your career. Yeah. It just comes with the fucking territory. So, doesn't it just seem like a simple plan that could be implemented?
I think most do. Well, I shouldn't say most, but I think a lot do have some type of policy. It's just
problem real quick, Raul.
Quick. I'm good.
I want people to understand, just because you don't have a written policy doesn't mean that there is a policy standard that your agency has been doing. And they'll look at what you've done, what the agency has done in the past. Yeah. It doesn't legally, your agency may have a written policy, but they can look back and be like, this is what we've done, and it becomes an inherent policy. It becomes an unwritten policy, which is binding.
Right. And that's what I'm getting at, is that most have I keep saying most, a lot have a policy. Those that don't have a practice that they do. So and the problem with having, not the problem, but those that have a policy probably don't use it a lot. It's like that policy of, just and the problem that we run into is that instead of taking a second, opening the book and reading the policy, we just wing it. We'll go over there and let me know what to say.
Yeah.
And then we kind of figure, right? So that's and we do that shit all the time as agency heads. When we have the second to, okay, I heard the question, I know where to find this. Let me look it up real quick and make sure we go by the book. We don't do that shit. And the people that don't have a policy, they do exactly what you're talking about, Chris. Well, last time this happened, this is what Chris did. So you get into that kind of shit, right? So yeah, man. Listen, we're coming up on time, guys. Chris did a great job of talking about the pathways and the support resources that we have at After Action.
If you need it, just reach out. Yeah,
afteraction.care. It's all on there. If you go onto the website, everything's there. Also, our contact information is going to be in the credits. If you or anybody else needs our assistance, no matter what it is, from training, need help getting treatment, therapy, we're here for you. Contact us. We will get back with you. Anything you guys want to finish up with? Are we good?
I would just say, you don't have you can always call us when there's crisis.
Yes.
We're also available to talk about what happens before there's a crisis, or what to anticipate. So we're here to help you figure out what you can do if there is something, or when there's something that's going to go on. We can help you as it's going on, and we can also help you. Hey, listen, we've done this, and it's afterwards. What do we do now? What are some of the resources available after, the resources that we provided there? So we're there before, during, and after. So please don't hesitate to reach out to myself, Doug, or Raul individually or all together, or again, check the website. And I'm happy to share the Pathways PDF that we've created. And again, it's a team effort. A big shout out to Marky, who kind of did it. Like, it's a really great virtual flip book. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, it's pretty freaking cool, man.
Or also, just to add to that, it's designed for the individual, the commands, but also the frontline supervisor. What does he or she need? And what questions?
I thought you were going to say it's designed for dumb guys like me and Doug.
100%.
Even we can figure it out, so anybody be able to do it, man. So, no. And with that, guys, appreciate you. Take care. Thank you. Good night.
Have a good one.